Welcome back to the third part of this C1 speaking exam that I was doing with my students to record on YouTube to share with the world their incredible performance and maybe what they could do better. Today we're looking at part 3, that makes sense, it's the third part of the video. My name is Steve, let's do this. This is what you see in part 3 then, isn't it? You see a task, a question with different options that you have to discuss. This is the part where the conversation is really important. So we'll be listening to both of them, good friends having a good conversation. I've made the task a little bit difficult. I'll say that right now. I've made this task, and the C1, sometimes they give you a difficult task. Sometimes they give you a thing where it's not like, here are some different pets. Oh, dogs are good because you can take them for a walk. Cats are good because they are fluffy and cute. Sometimes you're going to have to think a bit more to come up with a good idea to be able to talk about, to demonstrate your level of English. So I've done a more difficult one to prove, as you know, as an example, if they can do this, then they're prepared for whatever comes up in the exam. But what I'd like to do then is I'm going to show, like I always do, show us how they did and then go over their answer and say what they did well, what they could improve, and so on. So for the next 4 minutes, just watch what they did and as always, think how you would do it, think what they did well. Pause the video and do the exam in class or with your friend or whatever first, if you want to. But here's Daniela and Manuela doing the exam themselves first. Now I'd like you to talk together about something. Here are some different areas where artificial intelligence is having and will have a big impact. Talk together about how artificial intelligence might impact these areas. First, you have a few seconds to look at the different options. Now talk together about how AI might impact these areas.
Shall I start?
Of course.
I think education is going to be impacted by a lot of students using AI to do the assignments and will actually not learn anything because the program is doing the assignments for them. I think the teachers may not know when it's done by AI and when it's done by the students, so it will be hard to stop it.
In my opinion, for example, in my class, almost everyone is using ChatGPT for the tasks. So it's very difficult and very confusing for the teacher to know what the student has learned or hasn't. So I think it's good, but it's not that good at all.
I think in art, it's also impacting real hard, not like art painting, but in music, because you can make songs that sound like another
Electronic
musician.
music, yeah.
And it actually sounds like another musician. It's made in a few seconds, so I think it could be really confusing.
More than confusing, I think it's a little bit scary, because the other day, for example, I was listening to a song, and I thought it was a singer, and he was not. It was just the AI intelligence. And also, I think art is very influenced right now by the new intelligences. Like in the past, it used to be just a drawing and maybe a painting, but now is everything related to that, and I think it's changing for a bad way.
What do you think about entertainment? I think it's going to hit pretty hard in entertainment.
It's already hitting very, very hard to teenagers, most of them. They just use, for example, instead of hanging out with friends and socializing, they play with their friends in the PlayStation, and they stay at home and they don't.
Thank you. Let's pause there because that's the end of the first phase of this where they've been discussing the different options. And what we'll do is we'll go through what they said. So we've got a couple of little mistakes that I've put in red, but that's normal. They're speaking for a long time. It's normal to make a couple of mistakes. In general, their grammar and vocab is very, very good. It is a C1 level. They have a good speaking level. But they've also got some very good things that I wanted to highlight, because what's different in this part of the exam is that they will be assessing your interactive communication, as in how you talk to each other, your skills of holding a conversation, which are specific language functions that they want to see in the exam that you can do, such as Have I highlighted this wrong? No. Such as, shall I start? Of course. Great. With you being polite to each other, you're organizing the discourse well. Then a bit more subtle way, this is really important, that Daniela says, in my class, everyone's using ChatGPT. And this is not a random comment. This is a clear response to what Manuela said about students using programs to do assignments. She's clearly listening and responding something relevant. So it's good because they're clearly having a conversation. The same for the little comment about electronical music, which is maybe a little mistake. It should be electronic, but it shows that she's listening. And this, I really like this, just to chime in with a little comment there is really nice. And we could say the same thing for Daniela's comment about Manuela says it's confusing. More than confusing, it's a little bit scary. And Manuela asking a question, moving on the conversation, showing that she can guide a conversation. And Daniela again using the vocab in response. It's going to hit, it's already hitting. Very nice. In terms of the ideas, we'll talk about that in a minute because it's a really difficult question. But I just want to focus on how they have a conversation. And these two girls have known each other for a very long time. They're very comfortable together. They take turns. They're polite. They have a very nice conversation. And they use the correct language functions to do that. So it's a nice conversation. Let's move on to the second phase.
Now you've got 1 minute to decide which area will be most impacted by artificial intelligence.
Can I start?
Of course.
I think it's definitely going to be either education or business, because education is what I said before. It's really impacting that area because students are really using it, but it's also really used for business because it makes things easier and faster.
Yeah, I don't have a job, but I know, for example, my father use the laptop every day, use Word, Excel, these documents for, instead of handwriting, it's easier for all the workers to write on a computer, and it's also a very much better way to, for example, send emails or
Thank you.
The last part.
Oops, we don't want to watch it again. We want to think about what was good about it. Well, there you go. They've answered the question. They're having a conversation again. Maybe we could improve a little bit here. For example, a little bit of repetition. It's always nice to think about, are there other ways of saying this? For emphasis, maybe instead of really, it's certainly impacting that area because students are without a doubt using it, but it's unquestionably used for business and without a shadow of a doubt or undoubtedly. So try to think of varying your vocab in that way. But they more or less came to a conclusion. You don't have to, but they were then talking about the area that will be most impacted. So they did fulfill the task there. What they could have improved in general, and I said at the start this was a difficult task, is the ideas. Difficult to come up with one clear idea that you're going to talk about for each of these, because with a C1 exam, you are expected to be able to talk about these adult news, like debatable topics. So AI, I think, is a fairly typical topic that could be on an exam, because if you're expected to be following the news, well, you're expected to be able to talk about common topics in English. And if this is in the news all the time, and if people are talking about it in English-speaking countries all the time, you should be able to talk about it. That means you need to come up with an idea. It's a bit unfair because sometimes I think I'm not doing an ideas exam, I'm doing an English exam. But you need to come up with an idea to demonstrate your level of English. So you need to have an idea about how AI can impact business. So if you want to do a little task, I'd recommend pausing the video and think, can I come up with one clear idea for each of these points about how AI would impact these areas? Then come back, and here's what I suggested. Maybe with business, we can talk about using AI to write sales text or to write emails, to write reviews, to write to customers, because AI can do this quite comfortably. Or to do like market analyses, which AI could also probably do. But a little bit of a specific idea, and then say this might put people out of jobs, or it might create new opportunities as people who say, I'm really good at using AI. Can I work for your company? Great, come and work for us. So think about the consequences of what you're saying as well. Would you agree or do you disagree? And then you continue the conversation. In medicine, it's apparently quite common now to use AI to diagnose illnesses because AI can recognize tumors and things like this. It can understand the data. So this is a great advance, isn't it? You can't say AI is going to kill us all if it's going to save our lives. Wouldn't you agree? And so on and so on. In art, well, they started talking about this. AI is being used to make images, to make songs. The new Beatles song has been helped by AI, new at the time of recording this. In entertainment, maybe talk about how, well, on the other hand, isn't it a bit of a problem if we have AI generating the lowest common denominator, the typical romantic stories that are popular but are not really of any artistic value? Is that what we want? Do we want to put people out of jobs to be replaced by AI and so on? And in education, well, I think they did a great job there. They could talk about students using it to copy, to cheat. But what about using AI like a personal tutor? If you use it correctly, you can use it so well to learn English. I've got a video about it. So maybe think of a clear idea and then, but what about this? Don't you think this? And then that continues the conversation in a really natural way. So maybe that's how I'd come up with some ideas for this. Takeaways, because that's about it. Takeaways: fish and chips, Indian, kebab, some of the best takeaways. But what we mean is takeaways from the video. Make a clear idea. Have a clear idea, make your point, and then pass it on. It's got to be fast, it's got to be back and forwards, it's got to be a naturally flowing conversation. Listen to your partner to help that happen. Don't just have your idea ready to go in the chamber. No, be responsive to your partner and say, well, yes, but on the other hand, then move on to your idea after you've responded to them. And finally, I think 2 or 3 points in detail like they did, that's really good. Students often ask me about that, but 2 or 3 points in detail, in partnership with your partner, working together on them, talking about these clear ideas, that's how you're going to do part 3. That's the technique. In terms of the language, well, keep practicing, keep improving, but there's your technique for it. Watch my video for part 3. I've got a couple of videos about part 3 that are really useful that I'll link to, and keep watching my videos and all of them. Thank you. Goodbye.